Hey, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Andy here from Drive Steady, and in this video I'm reviewing the BMW M3 Competition. So listen up, a couple months ago I had a chance to drive the M4 Competition Coupe, and I thought it was an absolutely fantastic car. But now I've got this, the four-door, the M3 of course, and I'm interested to see how they compare. So let's see what this thing's all about in this review of the BMW M3 Competition. I'll tell you one thing though, the balance of this car is great. Great balance. It's a blisteringly fast car. It gives you a really nice experience when you're driving fast. Alright, so let's talk about the exterior design or the looks, shall we? And I'm not going to touch the front end because the kidney grills are an extremely subjective design element, but the overall look of the M3 sedan. Now, the M3 sedan, compared to the coupe, some people might think, oh, the sedan is a different size, but no, they're practically the same dimensionally, both in length, width, height. They're the same. Now, in my opinion, I think the M3 sedan looks better and is more proportionally balanced than the M4. And the reason why I think that is because the M3 wears the M suit better. Now, what the heck is the M suit, Andy? It's actually quite simple. It's wider fender arches and a more aggressive front and rear bumper. And in the M4, I don't believe that the body design of the coupe allows the M4 to highlight the fender arches. Now, specifically here in the M3, the body lines of the sedan highlight especially this rear end portion of the fender arch much better. It gives the M3 that traditional boxy look of an M car, both from the front and from the rear, and that's the reason why I think the M3 looks better than the M4. Alright, so now let's talk about the engine and the introduction of all-wheel drive, or the option of all-wheel drive into the M3 and the M4. But before talking about that, the engine. So this is the S58. It has a 3-liter twin turbocharged straight 6-cylinder engine, making 503 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque. Of course, this is the competition model. If you get the non-comp, you get a little bit less horsepower, but you get the introduction or the availability of getting a 6-speed manual, which you do not get in the competition model. Now, this gets 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, and this is the rear wheel drive platform. Now, talking about that platform, BMW has introduced X-Drive or all-wheel drive into the M3 and the M4 for the first time ever for either one of the models. You saw this in the M5 and the M8, but now it's also in the M3 and the M4. Now, the thing that's really cool about it is that it is configurable. So BMW has several settings in the all-wheel drive system. They allow you to do 4-wheel drive sport mode, and then also if you disable your traction control, they allow you to run it in 2-wheel drive, so rear-wheel drive. So if you want your cake and you want to have it too, you can option the 4-wheel drive system in your M3 and your M4 and just drive it in 2-wheel drive if you wanted to. Now, of course, there's an added bonus to this, and it's always cost. The X-Drive system costs $4,100, so it is something that you're going to have to play with if you want the ability of having 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive. But nonetheless, it's a new option in the M3 and the M4 for the 2022 model year. But let's put that 2-wheel drive and all-wheel stuff aside, and let's listen to what this exhaust sounds like. All right, so what did you think of that exhaust tone? It definitely sounds different when you have the exhaust button enabled, and also more heightened with more burbles when you have it in Sport Plus mode. So drop me a comment down below if you think the M3 exhaust sounds good. But the reason why I'm back here, there's two notable differences in the M3 versus the M4. So first things first, the tail lights. These are a little bit more classical BMW, but in the M4 they're more modern and somewhat more out there, I guess, for the lack of a better term. Now the other thing is, the M3 sedan has less cargo space than the M4. So eat your heart out, Andy. You wanted the looks of the sedan, but we're gonna take away 2 cubic feet from you. That's what you get. Anyway, so it doesn't take away from the fact that the M3 actually has a pretty decent amount of cargo space or trunk space back here. Of course, this has a daily usability factor, and you can open the trunk using this button here for comfort access. And this does have the executive package, which gives you this electronic opening and closing trunk. And you have plenty of space here, and these very conveniently placed latches that allow you to fold down the rear seats, giving you even more storage space. And then, of course, because it's electronic, you push this button here and it does close the trunk for you automatically. You don't have to put your fingerprints on the exterior paint. Now, touching on the wheels, tires, and brakes really quickly, and nothing has changed between the M4 and the M3 and the 2021 model year or the 2022 model year, but my opinion of them has changed a little bit. I actually like them much better now. I thought that the comp wheels were okay before, but now I think they suit really nicely and have a really cool looking design, specifically with these black colored optional wheels against this black colored paint. They're 19 inches in the front, 20 inches in the rear. Inside the wheel barrel, you have a really cool looking M brake caliper. It's 6 piston up front and single in the rear, with a 15-inch disc in the front and 14 inches in the rear. You can get carbon ceramics, which give you the gold color caliper. That's how you distinguish between the steel and the carbon ceramic brakes. It's a $8,000 option, and these brakes are actually pretty good and rather interesting, as I'll demonstrate their settings on the brake feel, as interesting as that sounds, but I'll talk about that during the driving portion. So now let's go in and I'll show you some of the differences in the interior. All right, so now the interior portion of the M3 review, and the thing that's drastically different as far as the M4 that I drove and this M3 is the seat. The M4 that I drove had the $3,800 optional carbon bucket seat, and this has the base seat. And this base seat is so much more comfortable than that carbon bucket seat. That thing in the center section here made it really difficult for me and is somewhat rather annoying to get in and out of. I mean, it's cool when you look at it. The carbon bucket seat is extremely cool to look at, and one of the best ones that's out there in the market, as far as looks and as far as the way it holds you in. But this is supremely better on a day-to-day basis. And as far as having the aggression to hold you in, it does have the bolstering, it does have the thigh support. This is more than enough. I wouldn't see why you would need more than this unless you were the hardcore track driver or you were just after the aesthetic. Just skip the $3,800 option. You can get the same color interiors and all that stuff. Get the base seat. Don't complicate things, especially if you're not serious about track driving. All right. Now, the other big difference is this has the extended leather option. So this is a $2,100 option. It covers this extra dash panel and these areas here underneath the steering wheel and by my legs here with additional leather. And I gotta say, this is a really high quality interior as far as the materials go. One thing I am going to nitpick and complain about, and BMW does this in the 5 Series as well, the air conditioning buttons here, the center section is metal and then these other ones here are plastic. I wish they would just continue on to the metal piece. I know the 7 Series does this. I'm not sure why BMW doesn't do it, at least in this M3, this $80,000, $90,000 car. And the other place where they're cutting costs is the window switches. Now this car does have the optional $900 carbon fiber trim. It puts it on the steering wheel, which looks cool, and then over here on the trim on the dashboard. But I wish they would extend it onto the window switch area as well. Don't change the window switches themselves, but put carbon fiber on there. It would look so much better. I like that. I saw that in the Seat white Corvette that I did, and I like it a lot. Now, moving on to the rest of this, some of the details, things that I really like, these paddle shifters, they're carbon fiber as well, and they have a really nice feel to them. The backing is red, the fingerprint area has some indentations, really nice, and then the rest of it is pretty much just common BMW. This does have a good head-up display unit that I like a lot. It's not intrusive, it doesn't get in your way, it's very simple, easy to read, as is the gauge cluster. A lot of information here. This is what you see in all other BMWs. You've got the horizontal RPM tachometer and speedometer, and then once you go into the different modes, they do change and become a different, more sporty looking gauge cluster, so that's always cool. And then the seating position is good. You do have a different vibe in here as far as the sedan versus coupe. Obviously this feels a little more spacious as opposed to the coupe with the roofline and such, but nonetheless this feels good. And then this car does have the heated steering wheel. This is one of the more underrated options in all cars in general. I didn't think that heated steering wheels were important. Not that they are, but it's one of those things where when you've got it, it's a really nice feature, much like the heated seats in this car. Now, two other things I really like about this interior. Number one, it's on the steering wheel. So it's these M1 and M2 antler looking things. Now, in a car where you've got several driving modes and several or infinite amounts of configurability, you've got engine, chassis, steering, and brake, having these M1 and M2 antlers to configure to your driving needs or the way you feel is actually very, very convenient, and I like them a lot. Now, the other thing I like about this interior is the infotainment system. Now, this isn't anything different as far as the look or the software. It's mostly the same. The thing I like about it a lot is that it's configurable, and the reason why I like that it's configurable is because it's very deep and very settings driven. So the configurability allows you to scale all of that back and peel back that onion and allow you to put what you want at your fingertips. You don't have to go scrolling into settings and menus and all this stuff. It allows you to put what you want right there in front of you. You can move things around. You can make the widgets bigger or smaller. You have a nice layout of shortcut keys here that allows you to toggle through your audio, your navigation, and your car settings and all that stuff. So the conveniency of this system to allow you to tailor it for simplicity is actually one of my positives for this infotainment system. But that's pretty much it. Now let me go to the back seats and show you what it's like back there. All right, so now the back seat, and I can say I'm pretty comfortable back here. I'm sitting behind myself. I'm 5'10", 5'11", and I have plenty of leg room here. There are some pretty cool amenities. There's a climate control system, so your passengers back here have the ability to adjust their temperature settings, and you have two USB Type-C charging outlets, which is always a bonus. Anytime I don't see any charging capabilities back here, it's always a ding, especially nowadays when everybody is so connected. They've got mobile phones, and having charging devices back here is a bonus. Now, one notable item, there is no armrest back here. What looks to be an armrest is actually just a pass-through for the trunk. So if you're particular about an armrest, know that your M3 is not going to come with one. But overall, as far as size-wise, I would say 2 adult-size individuals would fit back here. 3 children could possibly squeeze in here, but 3 adults probably not going to work unless you're in some emergency situation where you can make it happen. So that's pretty much the interior. Now let's go to the driving portion of the review. All right, so now the driving portion of the M3 Competition review. And as always, the key, not an exciting key whatsoever. It does have the BMW colors or the M colors right here. Nothing to call home about. Nothing that says you're driving an M3. Anyways, the visibility in front of you is absolutely amazing. No concerns here. BMW does this very well. Out back, this is a sedan, so I've got glass behind me. I have no issue seeing on over either shoulder. This does have all the camera equipment. Rear view camera resolution is really good. It does have a front parking sensor. So I feel pretty comfortable in here as far as visibility goes. The price, the base price of the rear wheel drive M3 Competition is $72,000. The way this is configured with the extra leather and the black wheels and the carbon fiber, it's about $78,000. So give or take about $80,000. And then if you factor in your state and local taxes and fees and dealer fees and all that, you are well into the $80,000 range. So let's go ahead and turn this thing on and see how it does. Foot on the brake, red start stop button. Not bad, not bad. I've heard worse, that's for sure. It does spark a little bit of emotion. You can tell that you are in somewhat of a sports car here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put this in Sport Plus. Engine baffles open, or the exhaust baffles open up immediately. You can hear the tone get much deeper. And I'm gonna put the chassis in Sport, or the suspension in Sport, steering in Sport as well. Now this is contrary to what I did in the M4, and I'll explain here in a second. But this is what I found to be the best for me. And then the brake, I leave it in Comfort. So let's put it in D, parking brake off, and let's go for a quick drive. Let's see how this thing does. I'm gonna put it in manual shift mode. And let me tell you something, this car is very quick, just like the M4, but for some reason I feel like this is a little bit more nimble. I don't know why. It is kind of tail happy, the rear wheel drive. I'll tell you one thing though, the balance of this car is great. Great balance. Feels really good in the corners, and the speed, the download torque, once you're in the rev range, you don't feel any turbo lag whatsoever. And I've caught up to a bunch of traffic. So let me tell you how this thing feels in general. In straight line speed, it is very quick. It's a blisteringly fast car. Faster than I remember the M4 being for some reason. And more traffic in front of me. Let me downshift, I should be able to get a straight line pull here. And I can hear the engine noise being pumped into the cabin. Let's go. Full bore. Yes. It does. Okay, it's properly quick, and it definitely gives you a nice emotional rush when you're driving. The exhaust tone is very good in Sport Plus with the baffles on, and the engine noise and all that stuff comes in very nicely. It gives you a really nice experience when you're driving fast. Now, since I'm up to traffic again, let me tell you about these modes. So in Sport Plus mode, the throttle response gets very good. The engine response is also very good. So continuing on, the baffles open up, and the engine exhaust noise is, in my opinion, at its best. Now, moving to the chassis. The chassis in Sport Plus mode is also very good, but for day-to-day driving, it's absolutely annihilating if you're driving on bad roads. If you're driving on semi-decent roads, or you're driving spiritedly, I do recommend driving in Sport. If you're driving on smooth roads, Sport Plus is fine. It's pretty fast. But as far as the chassis goes, the balance, it's such a sublime handling car, and it feels so nice. It gives you the rear wheel drive feel. The back likes to come out, and it rotates so beautifully when you're driving. So I really like the way this car handles a lot, actually. I'm gonna turn around here. There's too much traffic in front of me. But one thing about this car, as far as some of the handling and the feedback, is the steering. The steering is absolutely dynamic, like razor sharp. Man, the bass that comes from the exhaust noise in Sport Plus mode is worth the price of admission. It's really good. Oh, it rotates so nicely. Oh yes, this is a beautiful handling car, beautiful handling car. So now, the steering response. The steering response is extremely sharp, whether in sport or in comfort mode. It is a very sharp, razor sharp, no deadness in the steering wheel whatsoever. And I personally like the steering feel a lot. In other car manufacturers, you see that the steering weight, the way it feels in sport mode is way too heavy. And in this, honestly, the steering is tuned super well. If you're a fan of razor sharp steering with no deadness, no numbness, this is the M3, and I remember the M4 was like this as well. No deadness, very sharp steering, and the steering feel, the firmness is very good as well. Now the brake is actually really interesting. This is the brake-by-wire system new to BMWs. In comfort mode, it's good. This is the way I preferred it. In sport mode, it gets too sensitive. That's the best way I can put it. It's way too sensitive. You touch it and it's almost like way too much brake pedal. If you're driving on the track, I can see it makes a lot of sense. But it does take your mind some reprogramming to get used to the sport mode for the brakes, at least. I'm gonna get a straight line acceleration here again. That never gets old. It's a really nice accelerating car. All right, so now I'm gonna slow it down, take it out of Sport Plus mode, put it in efficient, everything in comfort, transmission, shifting in the slowest mode, and just drive it like a daily driver. So this thing as a daily driver is also very good. When I was driving the M4 with those seats, it was too rough. And with these seats, it's much better, and I think much more qualified as a daily driver. If you put everything in efficient, comfort, everything in comfort, it is so easy to drive this car. It is remarkable how good BMW has become with the dual purpose car. I remember with my E46 M3, that was touted as the ultimate daily driver and track driving machine. And now BMW has gotten really sophisticated with that, and this is a game-changing dual purpose car. It is very good when you're driving it fast. It is very good like this. You can just cushion here and just go and not even have a thought about being uncomfortable. It is really good. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite cars I've driven, actually. Now, my final thoughts. Now I'm gonna pull in here and just stop so I get a chance to breathe and give you just my overall opinion on what I think this thing is all about. Now, stop. All right, so this is a fantastic car. For $78,000, I haven't driven something better in this price range, to be honest with you. It does speed well and it does comfort well as well. If you can get beyond the looks, if the kidney grills don't bother you, and to be honest with you, they don't bother me. When you're sitting in the car, you're not looking at the kidney grills. But anyways, this is a sublime car. I personally prefer it over the M3, over the M4. And for anybody out there who wants to buy this car, buy it without any hesitation, because it is a fantastic car. It really is, and it plays the dual nature extremely well. But those are my thoughts. If you have any other questions, please leave me a comment down below or send me a message on Instagram at DriveSteady. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, drive steady.